What shall we talk over together this morning?
Does one open the door to perception and understanding, or does it open by itself?
Does one open the door to perception and understanding, or does it open by itself?
Could we consider if there really is such a thing as a teacher, or rather, could we consider if there really is such a thing as a teacher, or rather simply an environment in which the student learns?
Is there such thing as a teacher for students, or will not be an environment that will help them to learn? Yes, sir.
You said on Tuesday that in the facing of sorrow, suffering, or pain, passion comes. I was wondering, would you discuss that and the connection or lack of connection? Are you hearing? Are you hearing?
Not quite, sir.
You said Tuesday that in the facing of sorrow or suffering or pain, passion comes. I was wondering, would you discuss that and the connection or lack of connection of that idea or fact, that boredom, negativity, guilt, self-contempt, anxiety, criticism, and low energy.
Sir, not too many questions in one question. I can hardly.
Could you also discuss how hyperactivity of the mind, whether negative or positive, can be stopped? And if self-inquiry be best to govern a person's who has cultivated his life, but question himself whether that matters.
Sir, why does one keep slipping back into despair?
First, his question was, what is passion? And does it come out of grief and pain? And the rest of the other questions, sir, I couldn't make out. So if you don't mind, one question will be enough. And also the other question is, the gentleman asked, why does one so often slip into despair?
What is intelligence? What enables intelligence to awaken in the educator and in the student? Particularly if intelligence is not a result.
What is intelligence? And if intelligence is not a result, then how can that intelligence be transmitted or conveyed to the student?
Or even how can it awaken in the educator himself?
Or how can that intelligence awaken in the educator himself?
Can we discuss further the relation between desire and love?
People?
The relation between desire and love.
What is the difference between desire and love?
We discuss discipline. We discuss discipline.
Discipline. Could you discuss discipline?
Our relation to the suffering of others and people and animals and any living
Yeah.
being.
What is the relationship between suffering of human beings and animals and so on? I think that's enough, don't you? What is intelligence can be awakened in us and so help the student to understand it. And what is is intelligence something to be striven after, or does it come naturally? That's one of your questions. And what is passion? Does it flower from suffering and pain? Why does one so often slip into despair? What is the relationship between human beings who suffer and animals who are tortured and suffer? Now, out of all these questions, which do you think we ought to discuss? Take it up. Can we begin by talking over together, having a dialogue between ourselves, between friends? What is intelligence? And how does it come out into being? Can it be cultivated? And can that intelligence be awakened in the student? If we could go into that question fully, the other questions might be included in it. What is the intellect? What is intellect? The capacity to reason, to perceive, to understand, to grasp the significance of a word or a statement that is generally understood to mean the intellect. The capacity of the brain to reason objectively, sanely if it is possible, and not be caught in opinions and judgments. That is the general meaning of intellect. And what is the function or relationship of the intellect, which all of us have, that capacity to reason, healthily or not healthily, sanely or insanely? What is the relationship of the intellect to thought? Please, you don't mind my going step by step? May we go on that way? What is the relationship of the capacity to reason, sanely or insanely, relationship to thought? Is intellect, all the meaning which we have given, different from thought? You understand? Is not thought the whole movement of memory, experience, knowledge? The whole movement of that is thought. Can thought reason correctly, rationally, and therefore the intellect is part of that thought. Are we meeting each other? Yes? May we go on? It's no good going on by myself unless we, both of us, discuss it, understand what we are talking about. We are trying to establish if there is any difference at all between thought and the intellect, and if the intellect is the product of thought. And if it is the product of thought, then thought, can it reason correctly, accurately, sanely? That we must first establish. Then we can proceed from there in the understanding of what is intelligence. We are, as thought is conditioned, as thought is fragmentary, as thought is the movement of time and the movement of measure, can that thought, which is past, which is the product or the response of the past, can it ever, meeting the movement of the present, can that ever be rational, sane, healthy? I wonder if you're following this, sir? Because we have given such importance to thought, right? We have given such extraordinary value to all the construction of thought, all the movement of thought which has made the gods, the rituals, the saviors, built churches, temples, mosques. The whole movement of thought is based upon knowledge which is past. Right? Is that? Can we go on from there? It's a dialogue, please. We are not asserting anything. We are together investigating, informing each other the nature of thinking. So, we say thought. What's up?
He asks if you would characterize much of what you do as thought.
Would you characterize what the speaker is doing as movement of thought? My word. May we come to that little later. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm not going to cunningly move away from it. I'll answer it. But first, understand this thing. Because if I tell you what the speaker, how the speaker functions, without understanding all this, then you will say, what are you talking about? You are mad. So I think it's important to understand, before I can answer that question, what is thinking and what is the things that thought has created, and whether as thought being very limited. The scientists are now accepting, I was told by Dr. Bohm and others, that even the scientists are accepting the very limitations of thought. So we are saying thought is a fragment, right? Whatever it creates, whatever it thinks is still in the field of fragmentation. Right, Auken? So thought can never perceive the whole. Because thought is directional. Thought moves with a motive. Thought functions with remembrances. So it will invariably, under all circumstances, whether technological, scientific, human, religious, or superstitious, illusory, it is fragmentary. Do we see this fact? Not I tell you the fact and you see it. Do you see this as a fact for yourself?
Where does sanity and insanity fit?
Beg pardon?
Speaking of being the intellect is sane, where does sanity and what you're referring to as being insanity fit into that?
I don't quite.
Where does sanity and insanity fit into what you're saying?
We begin by saying intellect is reason, logic, sanity. What is the relationship of intellect to thought? Then we say thought is fragmentation, and then the gentleman asks, how does sanity fit into that picture?
It doesn't. One can reason using thought as an instrument of expression. One can reason and think that reasoning is very sane, but if that intellect is neurotic, whatever it does is still neurotic. So it can never be sane. Right? I don't know if you agree to this, if you see that. Sanity implies, let's go back. The word whole implies health, sanity of the mind, and the perceiving of that which is holy, sacred. That word covers all that. Health, sanity, and holiness. Holy. So, can thought perceive the whole? Can the intellect perceive the whole? Do you understand my? Because it is fragmentary, it can never perceive the whole.
Would this imply that logic and reason are mechanical?
Yep. Yes. I'm becoming an American. You understood what he asked, which is thought mechanical? Now you, please, how would you answer that question? I said yes or yeah. Now, how would you answer that question?
What are the other functions of the mind besides thought or thinking?
First, I'll wait, sir. How would you answer that question? Is the mind, the brain, thought mechanical?
Mechanical means repetition.
Mechanical means it has several meanings. Repetition, there must be a motive which keeps it going, energy that keeps it going. So is the intellect, thought, mechanical? I do not know if you have not noticed for yourself that we live in habits. We are creatures of habits. Sexual, nutritional, committed to a belief, an idea, or an ideal, a conclusion, and living in that field all the time is mechanical. Repeating, believing, caught in a tradition, ancient or modern. So the whole process of our existence is mechanical, as it is. Right, sir? The gentleman says, if I understood it rightly, he says, is intellect also mechanical? Is not the intellect also fragmentary? No, we're coming to that, sir. Slowly we're coming to it, going step by step, so that we both understand that we are speaking accurately.
Intelligence, talk of intelligence as perception and as rationalization without considered thought. If that's possible, I'm not sure.
I've not quite understood.
He's confusing intelligence and intellect, not seeing a distinction between them.
Yeah. He says, if I understand rightly, that intellect is intelligence.
Or asking, yes.
He's asking. Please, I said thought is fragmentary, right? Intellect must be fragmentary. Intellect, which is reason, understanding, capacity to grasp things. But that intellect cannot perceive the whole because it is still fragmentary, because thought is functioning. When thought is functioning, whether it operates through the intellect or uses the intellect as a means of understanding, thought being fragmentary, whatever it does and produces using the intellect is still fragmentary.
What would it mean then to speak?
What
would it mean then to speak of right reason? Or
I'm coming to that, sir. What's that? Between the intellect and thought. What is the difference between the intellect and thought? See, I'm answering all the questions. Why don't you answer it?
The intellect is the response of thought as we know it.
Beg pardon, madam?
The intellect is the response of thought as we know it.
The intellect, the lady says, is the response of thought.
In the service of thought.
What?
Service of thought. In the service of thought.
In the service of thought. The intellect, the lady says, is at the service of thought. But, madam? I'm afraid we can't hear. No, please, just go. If once understood this together, it becomes very simple. We said thought is, under all circumstances, fragmentary. Because thought is limited. Because thought, which is a response of memory, is limited. You might acquire tremendous knowledge about everything, about the world, everything in the existence, and that learning is results in knowledge, and that knowledge is never complete, is never whole. Therefore, from that knowledge, the response is thought. That thought is limited, fragmentary. That is the first principle. If that is clear, then thought operates through the intellect.
Through the intellect?
Huh?
I don't understand what you mean by through the
Thought is part of the intellect. Yet, madam, look, I've just looked at first-class dictionary, and it says the intellect is the capacity to reason, capacity to think clearly, to understand, to grasp. So thought is in operation. When you reason, thought is in operation.
So then, instead of saying that intellect is the tool of thought, we would say thought is the tool of the intellect.
Thought, you see, we shouldn't really separate the two. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Could you say that the intellect is like a movie screen and thought projects data onto it?
No, sir, no, sir. Look, use your own intellect. Use your own intellect, which is part of the mind, which is, we are speaking in English. You and the speaker understand English. So the understanding, verbal understanding, is part of the intellect, which is thought. You translate what you hear in English, and that becomes the understanding, verbal understanding of what is being said. So thought is intellect. So intellect can never be or perceive the whole. Intellect thinks it can. Thought thinks it can see the whole. Just a minute, right? But we are saying that thought, being fragmentary, can never see the whole. Right, sir?
I'm not quite clear, sir.
You're not quite clear.
Is intellect anything other than the manipulation of concepts, words, and images?
That's right, sir. That's right. That's right.
Is that all it is?
That's all it is. Concepts, manipulation of concepts, beliefs, ideals, reactions, imagining, all that is function of the intellect.
What about logic?
Logic is part of it.
Logic is the manipulation.
Of course, logic is the manipulation of thought. If this is clear, not because I say so, because I'm not your authority. I have no authority.
You said that the thought was part of the intellect at one point.
Yes, the thought is that part of the intellect.
Yeah, but then you said thought is intellect.
Yes, thought is intellect.
If thought is part of intellect, then it would
All right, we'll change it. I withdraw part. I would say it is. It is, thought is the essence of the intellect.
there is no difference, they're one and the same.
None. You observe it in yourself, sir. I say to you, it's a beautiful day. You listen to the words. The words convey a certain response in your memory, which becomes a thought, and you say, yes, it's a lovely day. Which means your thought is operating, conveying all the rest of it. So thought is the movement of the intellect. Thought being limited under all circumstances, whether it is technological, aspirational, imagining there is God, or imagining there is Jesus, this, that, and it is essentially limited.
What about the relationship between thought and mind?
The mind, to me, I may be wrong, please question it, go into it. The mind is the intellect, the thought, the feeling, the nervous responses, the reactions, the whole structure of human thought. The whole content, which is consciousness, is the mind, in which suffering, pain, anxiety, fear, pursuit of pleasure, fear of death, what is it? The whole of that is consciousness, which is the mind.
What's the function then of meditation in relationship to consciousness? What is the function then of meditation?
I'm coming, so of meditation, what is the function of meditation in relation to consciousness? What is the function of meditation in relationship to meditation?
In consciousness.
Huh? Consciousness, sorry. So,
Seems like a very big jump.
meditation is the process of emptying the content of consciousness. Emptying the content of consciousness, which is the content makes consciousness. If there is an emptiness, emptying of all the content, the consciousness as we know does not exist. It's a totally different dimension. That we won't discuss that because that's a tremendously complex question, which we'll go into perhaps on Saturday or Sunday.
Isn't the content of consciousness thought?
Yes, sir. Content of consciousness are all the things that thought has put in that. Please forgive me, we won't go into that because that's a different, we can do it on a different occasion. We haven't come to that yet, sir.
Could we ask it this way? If consciousness is only the manipulation of concepts, images, symbols, memories, experiences, does it ever see anything for itself?
No. So let's see. We start now if you all see this as an actuality, not because I tell you, that thought is fundamentally limited. And whatever it does within the area of consciousness is still limited. It can imagine consciousness is as wide as heaven, but it's still the product of thought. It can imagine the most lovely things. It is still product of thought. It can say there is God. It's still product of thought. They can say anything illusory, factual. It is still within the field of consciousness. Right? What's up?
What is thought limited to?
No, thought is limited in itself. It's not limited to something. So you haven't seen the first thing, that thought is the response of memory, stored up in the brain as memory, which is the result of experience and accumulation of knowledge. So it is limited. God, please stop there. Let's get on with it. So, what it then is intelligence. You understand? If thought is fragmentary, and so the intellect also is fragmentary, and is intelligence part of this fragmentation? If it is not, then fragmentation has no relationship to the whole. That is, when I say I am a Hindu, the assertion of that is based on memory, conditioning, and so on. So, as long as there is conditioning, which is the product of thought, whatever it does is still limited, fragmentary, illusory. So the question is then, what is intelligence? If all this is not intelligence, what is intelligence? You understand my question? Are we meeting each other somewhere? Yes. Not in the oak grove, at a different level. What?
Would intelligence be the recognition of the limitations of thought?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But just, you haven't listened to the... We're so occupied with our own conclusion. We want to... He says, is it not intelligence that realizes the limitations of thought? And we said yes. See, so we're going to go into the question of what is intelligence. Apart from the dictionary meaning. Because the dictionary meaning says intelligence is the capacity to read between the lines. You understand? Leggere. I mean, I'm going to it. To read between the lines, which means you must observe what occurs between two spaces of thought. I'm translating it. It doesn't say that in the dictionary. It comes from the word leggere, to read. To read in a different sense. Read, psychologically read, and read objectively what is. All that's implied in intelligence, that word, according to the dictionary. we are not using the word intelligence in that sense, because all that's implied thought. You understand? To read very carefully between two lines is to penetrate that which is not said through thought, that which is not said printed on the page. You have to exercise thought to penetrate what is between the lines. I wonder if you get, So we are saying, what is intelligence? No, find out, go into it, sir. If thought is limited, whatever it does is brings about conditioning. When I say I must be brotherly, it is part of the conditioning. So whatever it does is limited, and therefore conditioning. Now, is intelligence the product of thought? Product of reason? Oh, sir?
Cessation of thought.
But is that a fact to you, or just an idea? You see, that's why I don't want. If thought is not, can thought bring about intelligence? Or is intelligence totally independent of thought? And if it is independent totally, can intelligence then use thought? Not the other way around. Please, just listen. Forgive me, I'm not being impatient, but please just listen. Which is, we said thought is limited, fragmentary. It is the movement of time, which we're going to little later, question of time. And if that is so, then we are asking, does thought bring about intelligence? If it does, that intelligence is still fragmentary. Right? Therefore, it cannot be intelligence. Wait. So, what is intelligence? If we say thought cannot bring about intelligence, then intelligence is totally independent of thought. So, have you, listening to this, grasped or have an insight into these two facts? Insight, that is, see the truth of this. That thought is limited, and thought cannot, under any circumstances, bring about intelligence, cultivate intelligence, under no circumstance. Therefore, thought is unrelated to intelligence. Intelligence, we say, is the capacity to see the whole. The whole of the movement of thought. The capacity to see that. The capacity to see thought is limited. To have an insight, that insight is intelligence. I wonder. Right, sir? Now, wait a minute. Therefore, intelligence can analyze. Thought, because it is fragmentary, whatever it analyzes still be fragmentary. Whereas intelligence analyzing will be analyzing always with the background of the whole. I wonder if you see all this. Right? What is the whole? What makes you ask, if I may, madam, ask you, what makes you ask that question? We said thought is necessary in certain area. The area of technology, the area of communication, verbal communication, the area where memory must function. Technological, verbal, how to ride a bicycle, drive a car, and so on, so on, so on. Their memory must function. Otherwise, you know what you follow. That would be rather insane. Now we are saying that very thought which has based on knowledge, which is necessary, that thought says, I can understand the whole structure of man. So whatever it inspects, investigates, will be fragmentary. Right? I wonder if you see this.
Isn't it that the best it can do is to come up with a formulation or a conclusion about the whole structure of man or the whole?
But it's not the whole.
But it's not the whole.
So the description is not the described. The word is not the thing. Right? That's all it can do. Thought can describe what the mountain is. But the description is not the actual. Not in other words, just see the fact. Right? Can we move from there? By Jove, it takes a long time, doesn't it? So what is intelligence? Intelligence is the capacity to see the truth that thought is limited. And how does that capacity come into being? You understand? That was your question. It can only come into being when thought... Wait, I've got it. It can only come into being when there is the art of placing, when there is the placing of thought in its right place. I've got something?
Yes.
That is, I need thought to speak. Not I. I'm going to that presently, that question. How do you... To communicate to you verbally, I need to use thought. Right? Because words have been stored up in the brain and all the rest of it. But thought thinks, I can also perceive the whole. Pretends, imagines, conceives, but is not the whole. So we are saying the perception of the whole is intelligence. And how does that perception arise? Which brings about, which is intelligence. Right? Is this clear? Now, huh? We can. What?
That we can think our way to the whole.
I've been saying, so I never said you can think your way to the whole. I said, on the contrary, thought will not lead to the perception of the whole. That's simple. Huh?
But you said intelligence will.
But I'd never.
When thought is in order, then it stops and intelligence can operate.
No, madam, just go slowly. You don't even listen to me. Look, I see the world made as a fragment. I see the world fragmented, right? The world around me. Me, you, we, they, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the fragmented, broken up. All that is the operation of thought, obviously. When I say I'm a Hindu, it is the operation of thought. And so, whenever thought operates, it can only bring about fragmentation. That's an absolute fact. I won't go back on that. Repeat. So thought can never make its way through to intelligence. So, how does this intelligence come into being?
Recognition of a thought as a thought, and only a fragmented dream, is the beginning of intelligence.
What?
The recognition of thought as thought and as only fragment brings intelligence.
I said so. We said so just now. He asked that question. That gentleman asked that question. We said, yep. Now let's go on, sir. Thought cannot bring about order in itself.
Thinks it.
And see the difference. Thought thinks it can bring about order in itself. But thought, being limited, whatever its order is limited. I'm using logic, simple. So, the capacity to put thought in its right place is intelligence. That is, I do require knowledge, experience, which will give me knowledge, therefore memory and thought, all that, that's clear. So to put that in the right place is intelligence. So that intelligence comes into being only when thought realizes it cannot, whatever it does is limited. When it realizes its own limitation.
Thought realizes.
Thought, oh yes, thought. Can thought realize its own limitation? Right? You are asking.
Yes.
What do you say? No, what do you say? Just think about this. What's that? Of course.
Also suffering.
No, don't bring in suffering, please. Just, my golly. So we are saying thought cannot make its way or cultivate intelligence. Intelligence comes into being when thought sees, when, I must be careful here. So may I go into something else for the moment, totally related to what I'm saying. To observe the mountain, how do you observe the mountain? There they are, in a mist. No, do watch it, sir, watch it. Look at it. Look at it first. How do you observe that mountain, that thing called mountain? How do you look at it? Apart from your eyes, apart from visual perception, the nerves, the retina, and so on, the nerves and so on, conveying to the brain the shape of the mountain, all that. How do you look at it?
We look at the mountain with the image,
Huh?
word of the mountain.
What?
We look at the mountain with the image, which is the word mountain.
Yes, the word creates the picture, and the picture indicates that it's the mountain. Right? Oh Lord, that's not true, he says. You discuss it with him, sir. Go on, discuss it. So don't say it's true or not true. Have a dialogue with him, friendly dialogue.
What is it? Well, if you ask what it is, then you have to give a name to it. If you just look at it and not ask what it is, you just look at it. And then now you're not thinking about what it is or what it's going to become. You're just thinking of what you're looking at. You're not even thinking of what you're looking at. You're just looking. There's no thought involved. It doesn't have to be. What is the relationship between pain and intelligence?
So we haven't even come to the. You can look at the mountain, his gentleman says, without the image. Of course, sir, you can. Just to observe, without the picture. So just that's what you two have decided. That means what? To observe without the word, right? Without the picture which you have conceived as a mountain, right? Without the response which mountains awaken in you, just to observe. Just to observe. In that observation, there is you and the thing you observe. So there is a distance between you and the thing you observe. Right? And the distance is time. To go there, right? And so on. That distance brings a division. Right? Now, can you look, please listen, can you look at your boyfriend or husband or wife? Can you observe without the name, without the picture, without the image, without all the relations, movements that has taken place between you and her, or her and you, which is division, right? Go on, please. Can you observe without the distance? That distance, time, interval. That's easy to look at the mountain. Say yes. But can you look at your wife or boy, whatever it is, without the world, without the image which is the result of all your the struggle, the pain, the insults, the nagging, the pleasure, the fear, the domination, the attachment. All that brings about a division, right? The division takes place when there is the observer, right? Who is the past? So can you observe without all that? Your wife, your girlfriend. Go on, sir. Look at it. What? What?
If you do that, then there is no observation.
On the contrary, if you do that, the gentleman says there is no observation. It is, all this is preventing you to observe the actual. Right? Right? Do watch it, sir. Don't question me. Watch it yourself, in yourself. My ambition to become the most important executive in my business, whatever it is separating me from her. Right? Because I'm concerned with myself. And she is concerned with herself. Her fulfillment, her blah, 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 blah. So is there an observation? Please listen to this, because I'm going to relate it presently to it. Is there an observation without the word, the image, the picture, and so on? Don't say yes or no. Say, look, find out. What happens then if there is no division between you and her, which is a division of thought, memory, remembrances, conclusions, and there is none of that between you and what takes place? You are observing her or him for the first time. No? Huh? So, in the same way, observe the movement of thought. Be aware of the movement of thought, so that this awareness puts thought in its right place. You understand? And this awareness is choiceless. But if there is choice, there is immediately thought. And this awareness penetrated more and more in that awareness, it becomes attention. Right? I wonder if you're following all this. Of course you are not. You never. So, attention means what? Attention can only take place when there is no center as memory, conclusion, which are all the movements of thought. So, attention implies no center as the me at all. The me is put together by thought. So when there is no me, attention is intelligence. Fight me. No, first, have you understood what? Please, give me I must ask that question first before you attack me. Just a minute, sir. Just a minute. Before you jump on me, have you understood what I've said? Be clear. Otherwise, what you say will have no relation to what I'm saying. Right? I said, I'll repeat it carefully. I said, you observe your wife or your husband. When you observe, the observer is made up of the past. The past is your thoughts, your memories, your remembrances about her, all that. Now, can you look at her without all these images, pictures, and all the rest of it? And that's only possible when there is great awareness of the movement of thought. Right? Can you observe your wife or your whatever it is without the movement of thought? The movement of thought occurs only when there is choice. I say, yes, she's been good to me, and hold on to that. Or hold on to, oh, she has been, etc. So, where there is choice, there is no awareness. Because it is still the operation of thought. So, to observe without the observer is to be totally aware of her or her, me, you. So then in that awareness, when there is no choice, there is supreme attention. Attention can only take place when there is no movement of thought as the me, with all my pictures and all the rest of it. And that is intelligence. Now, have you understood my statement? You may not agree, you may say it's all blah, anything you like, but first understand what I have to say.
How does that awareness arise?
I'll show you how I've carefully pointed out. Look at the mountain. Can you look at the mountain without the picture, without the word, without the symbol, without all the reactions arising of seeing it? Beautiful, ugly, oh, I don't like that, I like, follow? So, can you observe that, which is fairly easy, but can you observe your wife and your girlfriend or your boyfriend without the image, the name, all the accumulated pleasures, and so on, so on, so on?
You do that for a short space.
And you do that for a short space. You can do that temporarily, for a short space. Then it comes back. So what happens? Go on, just watch it carefully. Watch it in yourself. Temporarily, you may have this awareness. And then the other thing overflows. That temporary thing becomes a memory, doesn't it? I've had it for a second. And that remembrance makes thought demand more. Wants more of that temporary remembrance, or that remembrance which was temporary. You understand, sir? I'll show it. Why am I working for you all? Huh?
Working together.
Oh, you're not.
So what quality in us does it take to use this awareness?
I'm showing to you, madam, it's not about quality. Can you observe the mountain without the word? Just to observe. That's fairly easy, isn't it? You can, if you're interested in finding out what observation is, you can do that. But now apply that to your wife, or to your husband, or to your wife. Can you look at her or him without the name, without the remembrance. You follow all that. Can you? You know, also,
What is understanding? Is it intellect or intelligence?
understanding can only take place when your thought is not in operation. When you are silently listening for the first time.
If I look at the mountain,
That's well, see, he's all.
I see an image.
So, did you hear what the speaker just now said to that question? If my mind is chattering while you are talking, telling me something, I can't understand you, right? Because I'm thinking of something else. But if I stop thinking of something else and listen to what you have to say, I understand you. No, I said very carefully, sir. I said I'll stop thinking. That's all wrong. I said, please, you don't follow it step by step. That's why. I said, sir, do quietly listen. Forgive me if I insist on asking this. I said, first, look at the mountain. Can you look at the mountain without the world? And perhaps some of you who have gone into the question of observation to see may understand this. And I said, next thing is, can you observe your intimate friend, your wife or your husband or girl, boy or girl? To observe, please listen, to observe her is only possible, or him, when the memories, conclusions, all the images that your thought has built about her are in abeyance. Then you can see her as it is, right? I've said this very clear and very simple. That can only come when you are aware of the movement of thought. That's all I have said, aware. Yes, sir.
Are you saying that intelligence operates in me only when I'm looking at somebody else's wife?
Gee willikins. I said your wife, your girlfriend, not somebody else's wife or somebody else's man. This is too absurd. Either you are serious, sir. Either you are serious or you are making this into a picnic. And please, sir, if you want to have an amusement, I walk out. I'm not interested.
No, there are some serious concerns.
What, sir?
I'll assure you that there are some serious concerns. But now you say by observing, being aware of that movement of thought, then you can look.
No, you haven't. Sir, listen to what I've said. I've said, if you are aware of the movement of thought, be aware of the movement of thought, how it functions, how it operates. You followed?
That is not stopping thought. When you
No, I said to observe it, sir, which doesn't mean stopping it.
I think that has to be cleared up because when you look at the mountain,
I said, sir, please, you haven't even. God.
I understand what you say, but when you look at the mountain and the thought comes in that it's a mountain,
Then you're not watching the mountain.
one might think, well, I have to stop thinking about that it's a mountain and look at the mountain. But by stopping, by saying that, you get away from looking at the mountain.
So leave the mountain now. I'm glad there are no coals or oil up there. Leave the mountain. Can you look at your wife or your girlfriend or at yourself, which is much better? Can you watch yourself, what you think, what you feel, what you want, what your pleasures are, sex. Can you look at yourself without any previous conclusions? Without saying this is good, this is bad. I'm beautiful, I'm ugly. I'm not so intelligent as you are, this, that. Just to watch, look at yourself as though you are observing yourself in a mirror. So the mirror doesn't distort unless the mirror is crooked. Mirror doesn't distort. In the same way, look at can you do that? Which means can you be aware of the movement of your thoughts without any distortion? Moment distortion takes place, thought is in operation. So we proceeded from there to be aware. And if you are aware, if there is any choice, that choice distorts observation. If you say, well, my nose must be straight, you're not looking at the mirror. So, where there is choice, awareness is a distorting factor. When there is no choice, that means no. When in that awareness, you are aware of the movement of thought. Movement, not stopping it. And that awareness brings about the right place to thought. Right place to thought. And that awareness, if you penetrate, if there is a penetration more deeply, is attention. In that attention, there is no center from which you are attending. If there is a center, that is the movement of thought. You can see, if you give, please just listen to me, if you give all your attention to something, there is no center. Right?
What actualizes the attention if there's no center?
Huh?
What actualizes that attention, that supreme attention, if there's no center? Even if you're not aware of
I know, no, sir, you haven't followed the whole step. You haven't followed the whole picture or whole thing that we've been saying. There is no incentive, there is no motive.
No, I realize that. I'm just asking you what actualizes that curve. You say there is supreme attention now. In the now, there's still...
So, would you listen to a statement without making an idea of it? Without distorting it? Without making a conclusion of it? I'll make a statement. I'll say the ending of sorrow is the beginning of intelligence. Listen to it. Just listen to it without drawing a conclusion. Making an abstraction of it. So we see, what time is it, sir? Huh? 20 minutes after. Let me, yes.
What is it that sees thought and sees thought's limitations? Is it thought itself?
If it is part of thought, then it is still limited. You haven't got the root of the matter.
Sir, I have the interval, the space between me and what I have observed. What happens when I believe that I perceive that, or I have perceived that as a fact, and then my thought begins to take over once more. I'm at that point.
I think I heard him.
Please, I've heard him.
Simply that I believe that thought has been silent completely. And it is no longer thought as an operation. That's my impasse.
Why does the silence continue? I think he's asking. I think he wants to know. He'd like it to continue.
So are you asking, is intelligence continuous? Right? So that one moment you are intelligent and the rest of the day you are unintelligent. So you say, can this intelligence be sustained, last several days? Is that what you are asking? The moment you have asked that question, the question is not an intelligent question. Because you are introducing thought which says, I must have it for a whole day. You don't see the beauty of all this. Yes, sir. What?
What does it mean for awareness to penetrate thought?
No, I didn't say that. I said, sir, please, would you listen? I must stop, because you can't sustain this for an hour and a half. Your brains won't stand this. I said, can you be aware, as you are aware of the tree, as you are aware of the color of the dress you are wearing, the person who is sitting next to you, and the sky, the trees, can you be aware? Watch the movement of thought. Then you say, who is watching? If thought is watching itself, it stops movement. Do you understand this? If I watch myself being angry, I stop being angry. Right? If I watch myself being happy, happiness stops. So can you be aware of your thought, of your movement of thought? This awareness is not identified with thought. Just to watch it, sir, kind of like watching this microphone. Watch it. But if I say it's a microphone, it's that color, this, who is sitting behind, who is I'm not watching. So I say, can you watch yourself as though you are looking at a mirror that doesn't distort? And I said, when there is this alert watchfulness, which is awareness, in which there's no choice, that moves into attention, in which there is no center from which you attain. So when there is complete attention, with your heart, with your mind, with everything you have to attend, then that intelligence begins to operate.